Good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee and Chat with Hallee Bridgeman. I'm so happy you could join me this morning. I'm coming to you from my office in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I'm not taking you on a walk with my dogs this morning. I figure you've had enough of the shaky camera and the out-of-breath author. I have my cup of coffee. I hope you have your cup of coffee or tea or whatever you drink in the morning and you have a few minutes to sit back while we chat. So you'll notice I have my Autism coffee cup this morning. This is the last day of Autism Awareness Month, April. And for those of you who don't know, my son Scott is 11 and he has autism. And as much as it's not something that I push all month of April, it would get very tiring to constantly see something about autism coming from me. I just felt compelled to tell you a story. And, I'm full of stories about my kids. All right, so Scott, a couple of weeks ago, we went to a handcrafters festival thing at a local distillery, at the Maker's Mark Distillery. We're in Kentucky, and bourbon is a huge part of the culture here, and so this was a pretty big, family-friendly, big deal. And it was really a nasty day. It was raining and drizzly, but we had made plans with friends to meet them there for weeks. And so we decided to just put on rain boots and pack umbrellas and go ahead and go. Well, Scott had woken up that morning with spring allergies. He gets spring allergies pretty bad. And the problem with autism is that when something is bothering you, you can't turn it off. Like if your sock is crooked and you have a normal brain, once you put it on and your sock is crooked, your brain is going to eventually not pay attention to the fact that the sock is crooked. If you think about it, you can feel it again. But if you don't think about it, it doesn't come up, then your brain kind of puts that off to the side. Well, for Scott, he can't not realize that his sock is crooked. That's all he can think about until it's fixed or off his foot or whatever it is. And so he had he just was miserable with allergies. And so Greg gave him an allergy pill. And that is not abnormal, but he typically gets it as he's going to bed. If it's something that's really bothering him, the reason that we would give it to him is to make sure that the sinus drainage, when he's coughing, doesn't wake him up at night or whatever. So he's not used to having the pill in the morning, and he didn't like the way it made his head feel, and he didn't like the way it made his legs. He called it his legs felt rubbery. And so as much as the allergies were bothering him, suddenly the allergy symptoms cleared up, and now all he could think about was how weird he felt with this allergy pill on board. Well, there's nothing that we could have done about that. And so one thing I did was give him some caffeine, because that would have helped, kind of counter some of the medicine heady feelings he had. And so then we left for the Maker's Mark Distillery. And we stopped and got lunch for the boys on the way, and he wasn't hungry because this allergy medicine was making him feel weird. And so by the time we got to the distillery, he was in full-blown autism mode. And the thing about Scott is that he is often in casual interacting with him, you're not going to pinpoint autism with him. It's just something, he's really super high functioning, but there are times that's a red flag, autism. And this was one of those times. He was completely unmalleable. He was upset. He was on the brink of a meltdown. He was hungry without realizing he was hungry because he hadn't eaten and his blood sugar was low. He didn't want to be there. It was loud. He had to wear his headphones, his noise canceling headphones, just to counter the music. And he was just all around completely miserable. And so and it was raining. It was drizzly and it wasn't a pretty day. And so we got there maybe 2 hours before it was over. And so we figured we would only stay for about an hour. But like I said, we were planning on meeting friends. And so, but while we were there, we saw more friends. Our best friends were there. I had sent her the information and didn't know that she had decided to come. I had just sent her that morning and said, oh, we're going to be here. It's free. You know, if you want to bring the kids, it'll be fun. And so as I was coming down a path on my way to go get Scott's headphones, because we had encountered this area with really loud music, I saw them, and it was so exciting to see them. And so we decided to get away from all of the crowds and go to where there was a restaurant and get everyone something to eat. And we would all, this groups of friends, you know, take a few minutes and finish the festival sitting down and eating and fellowshipping. So, but Scott was in autism mode. He was completely, there was nothing that would be good for him. And so I knew he was hungry. And so I took him into the restaurant part to order him some food, and I looked at the menu, and I knew that there was nothing on the menu that he liked, that he would eat, just because of the attitude he had. Normally my kids are fantastic travelers. Normally I can hand them a menu and tell them to find something, and they will taste anything that they're given. But with this mode that Scott was in, wasn't happening. I wasn't even gonna put him in that position, because it would have just made everything worse. And so I just looked at the menu and saw nothing that I knew that he would enjoy, except I offered him a grilled cheese sandwich, and he didn't like the idea of that. And so I said, and the reason of that is because he's really picky about his bread, because I make all of our bread homemade, and he just is not a fan of things on bread outside of home. He doesn't like the taste of it. So I went to the cashier, so it was just like stand here and order, then go sit down, and they bring you the food. You know, it's a distillery. It's not like it's a full-blown restaurant, but it was really good, like foodie food, you know, like the kind of food I like. So anyway, I see on the menu that there's like this really elaborate salad. And I said to her, this is what I need. I need a lettuce and carrots as a salad with ranch dressing. I said, I don't care what you charge me. I don't care how you put that on there. If you want to charge me for this big giant salad with all this stuff on it, please, whatever it is, just, he has autism and he's hungry, and that will probably be the only thing on the menu that you can feed him. And so she excuses herself and walks into the kitchen, and I think, well, hopefully she's just going to get permission to, you know, do it this way. And out comes the chef. And he said, what can we do to help your son? And I said, I just want lettuce and carrots. And then I asked Scott, because sometimes he'll take cucumber. Do you want cucumber? No. Okay. I said, I just want lettuce and carrots as a salad with ranch dressing. And you can charge me however you want to charge me. I'll pay whatever you want to pay, but he's hungry and he needs to eat. And this chef's name was Steven. So Steven it's like, no problem, talks the cashier into how to charges me like a fraction of what I expected. And then we go sit down with our friends. And a minute or two later, out comes the salad. Scott's excited. He's hungry. Like the allergy medicine's starting to wear off, and he's around his friends, and it's not loud anymore, and everything is looking good for him. And the sun is starting to come out, and he takes a bite of the salad, and he's like, these are his exact words, this was not the salad I was expecting. And he pushes it away. Well, our other son, Jonathan, who had eaten lunch and had a snack and was completely content, was like, oh, I'll eat it. And so he takes it and starts wolfing it down, because it was really good. But the dressing was a little bit spicy. And I make my own ranch dressing. And so, just like with the bread, Scott's a little picky with his ranch, and he just didn't like it. So like a minute later, out comes Steven from the kitchen again, and he found us, and he came to see if Scott was happy and satisfied with his salad. And I felt kind of bad because he wasn't eating it. And I said, I'm really sorry. He just doesn't like the ranch dressing. And so Steven then looks at Scott and said, what can I do for you? Anything you need. Just tell me what you need. And Scott said, I want a bowl of carrots, which was not what I was expecting him to say. And Steven said, how do you want them cut? And Scott said, I want them in squares in a bowl. And I looked at Stephen and I said, you don't have to do that. And he said, no, I need to cut carrots anyway. And I really don't believe he needed to cut carrots anyway. I believe he just really wanted to like make sure Scott was okay. So not 2 minutes later, he comes back out with this white bowl filled with perfectly diced carrots. This man could have won a contest for chopping. And Scott sat there for the next hour and just ate his carrots, completely happy. By the time people were leaving, because it ended at 4, and he probably got his carrots at about 3:15. And we pretty much closed the place out. As we were leaving, we were way in the back of the property. And as we were coming back to in fact, they closed the kitchen, they closed the bar. All of the employees were doing all this cleaning up while we were all still sitting out talking with our friends. And the kids were playing. There was a really neat area for them to play in, a gazebo and stuff. And then as we were leaving, it was like the employees left too. I don't know if they were waiting for us to leave or if we just timed it right, but they gave the kids rides on golf carts to the cars, to the parking area, because it was like way away from where we were. And so by the time we got up to our cars, the kids were hanging out on the golf carts waiting for us. They were really great. The staff at Maker's Mark was amazing. And we were saying the grounds are beautiful, and it was the perfect time. I wish we'd had cameras with us, because there was no one there. So there was no one, in the way of taking pictures of all of these historical buildings and this beautiful grounds in the springtime. So anyway, the point of my story was Stephen at Maker's Mark went way out of his way and way beyond the call of duty to make sure that Scott was taken care of, because he knew that he had autism, and he knew that I wasn't being a difficult mother, and that I was simply trying to get him fed. And if he hadn't been able to get something to eat, we wouldn't have stayed as long as we had, and we wouldn't have, closed the place down. We would have just packed up and left and taken him back to the car where he had lunch waiting for him. But we were able to sit down and fellowship with our friends, and Scott was able to reset and find his normal, and everything was fine because of the extra attention given to him by someone who didn't have to. And we encounter that all the time. And I just want to say that having a month like April for an Autism Awareness Month is wonderful, because it's opening the eyes to people who otherwise wouldn't be exposed to the idea of autism. And it gives us as parents and caregivers kind of this platform to say, here's some experiences, here's some information you might need to know. A couple of posts that I've shared all month long have generated a lot of conversation on my social media, just because it's something that people clearly desire to understand. But if you don't have like hands-on experience with it, you just really have no basis of understanding. And so it's really amazing to have something that come out like a month in April where it's Autism Awareness Month, that gives us a chance to say, oh, here's some information, and here's some more information, and here's all this information coming to us from different autism resources that we can now share with you, layman's, if you want to call it that, in this autism world. So I just also want to publicly thank Stephen at Maker's Mark for being so amazing. Greg and I, as we were leaving, I was like, I really need to write an article for the Mighty for this one, because it was almost like I had an article about a Steak and Shake employee who had gone out of her way for Scott as well. That ended up going viral. Yahoo picked it up, and a couple of other news sources, and I did a bunch of radio interviews. And it was because people love hearing about people who go out of their way to help children and to help people who are disabled. And so when you have an autistic kid, you get to fill people with stories about the ways that people have gone out of the way for you. So anyway, I hope you have an amazing week. I'm happy to be back in my office. And I will see you next Monday. God bless you.